Hello, everybody. Welcome to Just for Women Africa. And my name is Olaleko Amusa, the founder of Just for Women Africa. Today, we're on a Zoom interview all the way from the UK. We have with us Ellen Ekpegba, who is a Nigerian British performance artist who created the world's first Pidgin English Opera. She'll be talking to us about that and anything else that comes up during the interview. So stick around and we'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Just for Women Africa. And we have with us Ellen. Ellen, welcome to Just for Women Africa.
Thank you so much, Lekan. Thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to connect with your team and your audience.
Same here, Ellen. Okay, Ellen, before we get into the interview, I'd like to ask about your signature look, which is your hairstyle. Today you don't have it on, but you always do when you're performing. Could you tell us about your hairstyle? I mean, how you created it and what it's meant to signify and all that.
Brilliant. So the hairstyle for me signifies a tree, balance, and also birth of possibilities. And it refers to the name the Venus Bushfires. So it was a particular experience when I went back to Benin City, which is where my family's from in Nigeria. I was born in Ibadan, and I'm also from Benin as well. And I remember my grandma had some land that they were going to build some, build over, but they burned the land. And what happens is when you burn crops and things like that, the land becomes very fertile. So the Venus bushfires is the birth of ideas and the birth of possibilities, ideas that spread, like wildfire. And for me, the hairstyle was born from that. As being in Benin, being in Nigeria, so much, of our flora and fauna, just the nature, celebration of Mother Nature, celebration of women. So long story short, that's where the hairstyle's from, the birth of possibilities and an ode to Mother Nature, to trees.
All right, all right. I love the signature look. I mean, once you say it, you just know that that is Ellen.
Thank you. Just to say, we just came back from a little assembly at our children's school. And for health and safety reason, I didn't do the hairstyle. That's why I don't have the hairstyle on at the moment.
I was wondering. I was really looking forward to that. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, okay. So, all right. So let's talk about being the world's first Pidgin English operas. Um, how does that make you feel? And why did you decide to start singing in Pidgin English?
Being a Nigerian, you're very aware of so many different cultures that are housed in one culture. Broadly speaking, we say we're Nigerian, but there's so many different cultures, different histories and things like that. And with that, lots of different languages. And as you know, you can go from different places and people speak different languages. And we have over 350 languages in Nigeria alone, not even dialects, languages. But what is the one language, I say one dialect that everyone speaks? Pidgin. And and quite often, not just in Nigeria but abroad, and especially being a woman composer, people will say, well, why are you speaking Pidgin? You're educated. I'm speaking Pidgin because most of my people speak this language, and I think that's it's a dialect that brings us together. So for the very first time, when I went to the Royal Opera House in London in the early 2010. I was practically wearing every Ankara and Adire that I had brought from Benin City. So I stood out really in that audience. And I remember a lot of people, and I was wearing my shiny gele, and people were saying, oh, how lovely to have you here, and things like that. It was quite a novelty. It wasn't a bad experience, but I realized it was unusual for the other people to see somebody that looked like me. And I just remember thinking, I'm going to pigeon up this whole situation. And at that performance of Wagner's Parsifal, the opera was born. And I just imagine if the opera house was just flooded in Pidgin, and what that would look like and things like that, to bring what people consider high art with what people consider low culture. I really wanted to elevate that which we necessarily didn't celebrate, but I wanted to elevate it because it brings us all together. And I hope that it inspires cultural pride in Africans. And to be the first woman, and for it to be a world's first, and I'm a Nigerian woman, I think this is really big for the continent. So.
All right, definitely it is big for the African continent. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your music. The instrument you use, what is it called, and how long did you take you to learn how to play it, and of course put the music together?
I'm still learning. every day is a school day. But the instrument is called the hung, and it means hand. So it's when it was first invented in Switzerland by a Swiss couple, they called it the hang drum. But of course, the instrument is heavily inspired by a lot of African instruments and African folktale, and of course the Caribbean steel pan. So it's called a hung. And I have to say, when I first got it, I quit my job to get this instrument. I remember I said to my mum and dad, and I said to my boss, I've seen this instrument, I've seen this drum. I didn't know what to call it. I said, it looks like a spaceship. Everyone looked at me as in, huh? But I remember my boss wouldn't let me have the time off to go and get the instruments. I spoke to my mum. My mum said, quit your job. This is what you want to do with your life. I said, my Nigerian parents want me to quit my job to go and get this instrument that nobody's heard. I said, look, I must run with this. I don't know how often in the history of Nigerian parents, parenting, that has happened. So for me, it was just a green light to go for my dreams. And when I had it, I put the instrument on my lap and I didn't know what to do with it. It didn't make any sound. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Kind of thing. But as the months and years went by, I just kind of really familiarized myself with the instrument, and even now learn the new sounds that it can create. So that I've probably had the instrument for about 15 years now, and I'm still learning about new things about the instrument.
Okay, let's talk about the Venus Bushfires. What is that about?
So the Venus Bushfires is the birth of possibility. So it's the moment where that star, boom, is created. As as in, I'm talking about stars, stars, planetary, solar system. So it's the moment where that creation happens, the moment where the cell divides, the moment where the atoms, kind of split and do what they do to create what is going to be created. So it's the birth of possibilities. And for me, that possibility is an Africa that shares love to the world, an Africa that I know that is abundant, not an Africa that's scarce. And I'm really trying to change the dialogue, not just outside Africa, but within Africa, that Africa is this endless possibility. And hopefully the Venus Bushfires reflects that. So like I was saying before, so the Venus Bushfires is my poetry, is my music, is my expressive arts workshop, it's my leadership, my thought leadership, it's my writing, it's my music, it's visual art. So I'm hoping that, like I've been inspired by these experiences in Nigeria, I'm hoping that when I share this, other Nigerians, other Africans, and other friends of Africa will also be inspired to say, wow, Africa is amazing. And ultimately, I want to end, discrimination and also racism, because I want people to see people as equals, and inspire also, and to really just celebrate the endless possibilities and the wonder that is Africa. So that's that's the short answer even of the Venus Bushfire. So, and of course it's inspired by my love of astronomy and the space and things like that. So yeah, it's about love, Venus, the goddess of love, and bushfires, spreading positive ideas like wildfire.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, basically, you're into the opera. Who have been your biggest artist to look up to that has inspired you to now?
Really, my biggest inspirations for the opera probably are not necessarily classical musicians. It's, artists like Fela Kuti, of course, whose music resonates more now than ever, and Kate Bush, I love her her vocals and her signature kind of haunting sound, and of course Miriam Makeba, because she wasn't just singing, she was also coming with a message, a powerful message of empowerment, similar to Fela. So these people have really kind of inspired me, not just wanting to write and to compose, but also the way that I share my my art as well, to share it for positivity, share it for empowerment, share it for inspiration as well.
All right. Okay. So since then, all over the years, have you ever been approached by a fan of yours and who would approach you and say, "Oh, I love your work. I love what you do. Could you teach me how to, sing in Pidgin English?"
Actually, quite often that happens and things like that. But luckily, I think the Pidgin that I speak is very accessible. Sometimes you can go to your Lagos, Warri, Benin, Port Harcourt. The Pidgin is very different. But the way that the Pidgin that I speak is very accessible. So even people in the diaspora that have never been to Nigeria, never had a goosey soup, never had ogbono, So they will still be able to understand. And I will say that the audience of the Pidgin English has been very broad. We've been in Lagos, London, Cape Town, Turin, Turkey. So even people that don't understand English or any of the Nigerian dialects can speak it. But I just start with saying, how body, how you do, just simple, just get people to, to respond and just to see. It's such a bouncy language, has a rhythm of its own. And I think Pidgin is really fun in that way, because people, when we're performing, it's so gestural, it's so big that even if you don't understand, you will understand the rhythm and kind of understand the language through the actions and the dance as well. But we have a very diverse audience, and quite often people are speaking a Pidgin that I'm yet to even discover, because they speak Pidgin in Hawaii as well. Very similar Pidgin to ours. Yeah, it will be really interesting to understand, the pathology, the cultural pathology of that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you tell us actually what's exactly your plan, for what you started, after life, to make sure that what you started actually lives on, from this current generation to the next generation and the next generation?
That's a really wonderful question. I have a song called Last Winter Sparrow, and it's about basically a sparrow that wants to be an eagle. It comes towards the end of its life and says, I'm a sparrow, I'm not an eagle. So it soars over the horizon, and it hopes that people that see it at the bottom see the shadow of this big eagle, not this tiny, small sparrow. So that's about legacy and wanting to be remembered in a grand way. But I think what's really amazing about this Pidgin opera is that it exists now in a tangible form. It exists as recorded art, and exists as a history of a moment in time where Nigerians, Africans were saying, we have presented this to the world. This is a snapshot, an old audio and cultural snapshot of where we are right now. And it's a time where Africans are saying, we want to take our place on the world stage. And I also do a lot of workshops, as I mentioned before, and also leadership programs with children as well. So that next generation is really having dialogues about Africa, and also thinking about how they will make their mark on society. And how do I know that song in 30 years? I want to live a lot longer than 30 years. Let's say in 60 years, 60, 70 years, even I'll take it. Both my grandmas lived to 100. So I'll take it, let's say in 70 years time, please God. My children are telling their grandchildren, there was this thing called Song Queen of Pidgin Opera, and it really created a shift. And I believe that I can be anything, not just in Africa or in Nigeria, but I believe that, as an African woman, I can stand anywhere in the world and I can say, this is where I belong. This is the place that I should be. And I should be if I wish to be in a place of leadership, that is not just accepted, it's expected. That kind of excellence is expected. So that's what I hope my legacy will be. And of course, I hope that countries around the world are singing Pidgin, are reciting the Pidgin English opera. I'm hoping that schools are teaching it as, their curriculum, because Nigerian culture will, have exploded beyond, Afro beats and things like that around the world. I hope that people are celebrating Nigerians, Nigeria and Africa and Africans in that way.
Nicely said, nicely said. All right, okay. So can you tell us, what is the future for the Pidgin Opera?
I think over the next year, we plan to tour in a number of cities, around the world. So we're building the audience, and also we're looking to find a theatrical home for the opera so that we can have a longer run. Quite often we've had runs that are maybe two performances, one performance, and things like that. So we'd like to have a longer run for about a month. So the key now is to find the right theatrical partner that will really help us to build the show and build the audience. And eventually we want to be we want to be bigger than Lion King. We want to be bigger than Hamilton. That's the dream for Song Queen of Pidgin Opera. We want to tour around the world, as well as have bases in cities around the world as well.
Okay, could you tell us, when you started the Pidgin Opera, what were some of the challenges you encountered? I know things are looking really good right now, but I'm sure when you started, I'm sure you had a lot of challenges. Could you share with us some of them?
Really interesting question, actually, especially in Nigeria. A lot of people that like opera say, why are you singing in Pidgin? Shouldn't you sing it in French? Shouldn't you sing it in your German? Shouldn't it be Italian? And I would look at them and say, are you serious? I've got the opportunity to speak to my people. I'm going to speak in the language of the people, which for me is Pidgin, because that's how we all speak. And I think it's time to celebrate that which brings us together, even if people might look down at it. And that's just in Nigeria. But some people have said, wow, we're so happy that we're being celebrated. Most people have said that. But in the beginning, people didn't understand because it was the first time. And sometimes when you're breaking roads, there's some hard rocks in the way that you have to kind of, that you have to break to make a way. And of course, there's a financial commitment for the opera. So a lot of the times we've had funding, but a lot of the times, especially in the beginning, we've had to fund it ourselves. So my husband's the executive, producer, and that's not something that I can lie and say it's always easy. We just wake up, we do a show. No, it has to be, there has to be a business plan to the opera, and he really, really manages that so well, because the opera has been growing and continues to grow. But even now, there's always a financial element and something that is a challenge that we have to kind of overcome. So there has to be a cultural understanding of how this works, as well as a business and a financial, because if that doesn't work, then we can't do any more shows. So that's always a challenge. And also performing the opera outside of Nigeria and Africa, there are a lot of, I'm the only one still, doing something like this. Even in the UK, there are not that many women composers, let alone, African, Nigerian-born women composers, literally, a handful. So really just saying, I'm here and I'm playing and I'm ready to play on the same stage, and I'm ready to take that central position and leadership position, because people are not used to that. So it can be a challenge as well. And you sometimes feel that there are some doors that are closed to you. And then sometimes you don't even know the doors, that are close to you. But like everything else, and my spirit is very strong. I thank God that I come from a line of very strong, African and Nigerian women and men. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep going, especially when you're doing something that is new and that's groundbreaking. You have to just know that it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be challenging. But my desire to celebrate this positivity in Africa far exceeds my fear of being rejected, in this space. And that's kind of really important to keep in my mind. The desire to celebrate this and to share this, measured with the fear, and the desire always over supersedes the fear. So that's how I keep going. And there are other challenges along the way. Of course, sometimes you think, this is really tough, what I'm trying to do. Can I do it? The answer is yes. Yes, I do. I do feel that I can do it, and it must be done. And I'm ready to take that leadership position and charge forth.
Okay. You did mention that there are not enough female composers out there in Europe and in Africa. Why do you think that is the case, and what do you think can be done to, encourage women, to go into that field?
I think it's really important to be visible as a woman doing this. That's why I'm so excited to be speaking with you. Sometimes one has a tendency, especially I'm a performer as well as a composer, and quite often the composers aren't in the picture. But it's very important for me to be seen and to be visual, so that other young girls, young women, even African men can say, she's doing it and she looks like me. She sounds like me, kind of thing, then maybe I can do it. So I really want to inspire people to share, because if we only hear music that's composed by people from a certain place that only look the same, then we're not getting the breadth of the human experience around the world. And it's really important for me to be visible, so people say, I look like her, maybe I should give it a go. And I think, sometimes we should also celebrate women more, because it's a very lonely existence as a woman, composer, let alone an African woman composer. Because sometimes when I'm going through a challenge, I don't have another person that will know how it feels like to pitch the opera to an opera house, someone who has had a lot of the successes and the failures, who I can necessarily turn to. So for me, it's really important that women are celebrated, like you are doing on your platform as well, and that we celebrate each other. And also, I'm at the stage now in my mind and my heart where I expect to be celebrated. Because if we do good work, and I'm no longer shy to say the work is fantastic, because before I would, say, just, be humble and things like that, but that's not going to share our story. We have to say, you know, we deserve the limelight. We deserve, you know, we deserve the shine, because we do, and we have to be confident in that. And also, it's very important to bring everybody along, because nobody does does the journey by themselves. No worthwhile journey can you do by yourself. So, for me, it's really important to be seen, you know, as and not just to be seen as an opera singer or a performer, but also the creator. And working with my husband, who is a Nigerian man, an African man, we are, you know, the driving force. Quite often, we are the shiny face in front, and people don't see us holding the things together, but we're holding the things together, and we're saying, "Look, we're doing it. You can do it. In fact, come and do it with us. Come and join us." So we're really big on collaboration as well, and we support people coming up, you know, new artists and things like that. So yeah.
Okay, Ellen, this is Just for Women Africa, and as we bring the interview to a close, what's your advice to women out there who feel that it's a man's world, who feel they need money to start a business, who feel that they get sexually harassed, who feel that, you know, there are always barriers in front of them, you know, as a woman? What's your advice to them?
I'd say that, you know, arts leadership is very much representative of the whole world. So you won't get a situation in, you know, for example, in work that you won't get in life. And I think you have to be strong, but you also have to know how to to stick up for yourself and find people around you that support yourself, because sometimes it's hard to, for example, when you have a powerful person in position, you might feel that, or they might make you feel that you have to do certain things or be a certain way so that they will give you the leg up. But I'm telling you, power cannot be taken. Power can only be given away. And I really believe that someone cannot take your power. You can only elect to give your power away. And once you internalize that, you will realize that how strong you are and how powerful you are.
Okay, Ellen, thank you so much for being here on the show. We really appreciate it. We wish you all the best. We look forward to interviewing again in the future, and good luck on your adventures.
Thank you so much, and well done to you for having this, you know, this wonderful platform to celebrate and share wonderful stories and narratives about African women doing wonderful things around the world.